welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast about the A-Leagues, Premier League and more. This week, over half the football is postponed, so rather than talk about our loved ones and estranged family members, we discuss ham or turkey, the eternal debate finally answered, favourite Boxing Day leftovers recipes, and what's your favourite chocolate from the Cadbury Favourites box. My name's Tommie C, and joining me this week is Colby. Yes, I've actually got the guest panelist's name right this time. Colby, how was your Christmas, mate? You have a good one?
Hello, Tommie, and hello to all of our listeners. Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays to all, whatever is your poison. It was good, mate. Good day. Glad to be on holidays. It's very underrated time of year.
Fair enough. All right. Shall we just crack onto it into moment of the week? What you got?
Yeah, let's do it. Don't have a really specific moment of the week this week, but I tell you what, the Boxing Day Premier League fixtures and the fixtures in this round, which we'll talk about, were just delightful. So many goals scored, so many great games. Just
like 1963 all over again.
Yeah. That's that score sheet that gets reeled out every year at Boxing Day, and it pretty much delivered this year, and it was even more of a pleasant surprise because of the threat of postponements and match cancellations and things like that was hanging over it. And so it was extra delightful that we got some really excellent games.
Very good. All right, for me, my moment of the week this week is it could very easily be that my Christmas present this year. My old man, he went to quite some lengths this year to get to get a Christmas present for me, and he's like, in my family, we're not normally great gift givers, but this year he managed to dig up some Wollongong Wolves merch for me, which he got me a scarf, a cap, and a beanie, which as like I said, we're not great gift givers in my family, but that was pretty cool, I thought. I mean, I don't even know where he would have got it from, because I mean, I've looked for Wolves merch before, and like the club site is pretty sparse. So I mean, being an NPL club, so but yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I'll save the other thing that I've got for my own goal though. Colby, what about you, mate? What was your own goal?
Some more surprises for the listeners, Tommie. You've just got to stick with us to hear what Tommie's second Christmas gift was. Own goal for me this week. I don't know whether I've been following this whole Sturridge's dog saga since 2019, and I don't know which part of this is the actual own goal. It might just be the whole thing, but I first started out by thinking that Killer Fame was the own goal in all of this, because back in 2019, let's start from the start. Back in 2019, for any listeners who might have forgotten, we saw Sturridge appeal on Twitter for the return of his lost/stolen Pomeranian, offering to pay a big reward. And lo and behold, Foster Washington, this LA rapper, aka Killer Fame, came forward with the dog, but says he was never paid. So off he goes to an LA court and obtains a default judgment against Sturridge for the amount of the reward which Sturridge promised over Twitter, said to be, tens of thousands of pounds. And just the fact that he goes and sues for it, I felt was a bit of an own goal. Before the listeners get into our mentions on Twitter, I know it's a unilateral contract. I know Sturridge is technically on the hook for it. He's made an offer, and Foster Washington has accepted by his performance, but the whole situation just stinks. Like, Sturridge stinks for not paying the bloke. Even if the bloke stole the dog, I guess he should hold up his end of the bargain and just fork out. But like, how desperate do you have to be to sue someone for not paying you a reward for finding their lost dog? And I mean, we don't even know if this guy didn't steal it in the first place. So let's be generous and say that he didn't. But the whole situation is just cooked.
Mate, this was going to be the other own goal, or the other piece of news that I had, and you have done it far more justice than I don't think I ever could in the level of detail. But you're right, this whole story, which I think you might have had it as their own goal a couple of years ago on the show. So it's a wild ride from beginning to end, and the fact that it's come to an equally wild sort of conclusion, just chef's kiss.
I mean, Sturridge might appeal it. It might keep going on, because it's just the sort of first step in the court process, and there was a default judgment issued, which means that Sturridge didn't rock up. Like it was an LA court, so he didn't answer the claim or anything. So you basically the judgment is automatic. But Sturridge would still have an appeal right. Like this could go on. Sturridge also came out on Twitter during the week and said, "Oh well, look, I actually did pay, and I've got all this photo evidence, and I've paid the kid, and he was really happy." But I don't know. It seems a bit vague. I'm not sure. Surely this LA court would have had to have some kind of evidence to make a ruling about this in favor of Foster Washington. So look, I don't know, but it's just the whole situation.
All of this playing out while poor Sturridge is stuck in quarantine in Brisbane or possibly in WA now. So it's just the guy's not having a good 2021, is he?
Yeah, the man's brought like a lot of headlines to the A-League so far for like 7 match minutes.
Oh wow! Yeah,
he needs to
look,
get he honestly needs to start playing football soon, because otherwise, like his whole time here will just be a meme. Like you've got the songs on Instagram, you got this dog saga, like the barber audition process, like it's threatening just to become an absolute meme circus. So he just needs to get on and start like scoring bangers and playing really well for Perth.
And I think he has come here wanting to play. I don't think he's. I guess it's not quite clear yet whether or not he came here with sort of this attitude of it's just going to be a holiday. But I mean, in a lot of ways, it's all been taken out of his hands with COVID and stuff. And like you say, it's at the risk of becoming just a meme. But I mean, he hasn't really had a lot of control over it. Just sort of being sort of escalating out of control. Look, mate, as far as own goals for me go, though, I think it's hard to compete against that. And so, look, my one's going to be pretty short and sweet, and it's going to be the final goal scored by Melbourne Victory in against the Woo on Boxing Day night. Nick D'Agostino, I think, ended up getting the goal there. But something I wanted to mention from the lead up to that, which was Neil Kilkenny's Witch's Hat impersonation, where he stuck a leg out, sort of just sort of Daria-esque. I don't know if you remember that show from the ABC from the 90s and 2000s, but it was really like that. And I guess I want to throw out a question now related to that. What was more pathetic, Neil Kilkenny's attempt at a tackle there, or England's performance in the Ashes this morning on the third day of the Boxing Day test?
And for context, or for any of our listeners who might not be following the Ashes, England were bowled out on, day 3 now of the Boxing Day test. In a morning session, they lost 6 wickets for like 30-something runs in an absolute capitulation. So, but having said that, I think Neil Kilkenny's tackle or attempted challenge was pretty pathetic. So, and I'll say more about him when we come to reviewing that match. But yeah, they were both up there, Tommy.
I feel really sad for poor Sal, who we know is watching along right now, because he has no idea what we're talking about. So if someone else wants to jump into the comments and explain what cricket is to Sal, that would be much appreciated, I think.
Yeah, maybe I didn't take that far enough back.
So they're playing cricket right now in Melbourne.
The Premier League, the A-League, the Ashes, and more.
All right, let's get into some listener questions. First up, one from me though. I mentioned this at the top, Colby. Christmas lunch, ham or turkey? What's your preference?
Tommy, you can't ask listener questions when you're the host, mate, can you?
Well, look. There used to be plenty of noise thrown at me for not listening to the pod. And look, now I'm a changed man. I'm definitely tuning in every week, whether or not I'm on the pod or not. So I'm definitely a listener these days. So
I was wondering where that big spike in our listenership had come from.
It's just me listening to it on all the different apps. Yeah.
You can't go past ham on Christmas Day. Like, I mean, everyone, has ham or turkey or both that I know of. That seems to be what the majority does in this country. But turkey, it's a dry bird, isn't it? It's just a drier version of chicken.
just a leaner version. I tell you what, if there's one thing I do like about turkey, it's sort of like the only time that cranberry sauce tends to come out, and the cranberry sauce and turkey combo. I mean, as far as Anglo food goes, that's on point as far as I'm concerned.
Ooh, give me ham and horseradish any day.
Horseradish, spicy.
Oh yeah,
literally. All right,
Yeah.
into some actual listener questions now. At Run Them Memes asks, who started the COVID outbreak at Western City Wanderers, and why was it James Troisi?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
you're just
got
gonna.
no. I mean, it has to be Troisi, doesn't it?
There's no one else that it possibly could have been, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
unless we just want to keep blaming things on Robinson, JT, or Costello. So
well, I guess one person that it could have been was Gary Van Egmond. He slid in from Newcastle, where we know that there's a bit of a a bit of a COVID outbreak there. So, could it have been him?
yeah, he might have brought it in. Sleeper agent from Newey.
And look, I guess on a serious note, it's I was going to shoehorn this in a little bit later about Gary Van Egmond, but does that sort of seem a little bit odd to you, especially the way that it was announced as well? Like, I mean, it's a backroom announcement, right? A backroom staff announcement. It probably doesn't deserve its own sort of Twitter post, does it? Or social media post?
Oh, I mean,
Future
yeah.
coach, future coach or manager in waiting, is he?
Oh, it's a bit of a joke more than anything because the fans have been raging in recent weeks. They want blood. They want to see rid of the manager, the CEO, the football ops person, and then they get another former Newey staffer as an assistant. But I mean, yeah, it could be nice for an interim manager though. I've seen a few people sort of making that connection, and I think this might be a bit of manoeuvring by the club to sort of go, well, if we don't have anyone to replace Carl Robinson, at least we've got a sort of steady pair of hands at the wheel. We'll get him in there. We'll get him used to the setup. And then if we need to pull the trigger on Robinson, then we can. So from that perspective, it sort of makes sense. But yeah.
It's just like everyone at the Wanderers, like it's like the meme of the leaking tank, and they slap on another thing from Newcastle onto it, whether it's a player or a manager, backroom
you'd,
staff, anyone, just get him in there.
you'd be pretty pissed off, wouldn't you, if you're a Western Sydney fan and you're wanting real change at the club and they give you this just dross like another. I mean, no, that's no disrespect to Gary Van Egmond. I'm sure he's a very capable football person.
Championship winning manager in the A-League.
Championship winning manager. But come on, I mean, they're looking for something a bit more inspiring than this, and the change is a bit more wholesale than this. But I don't know if they're going to get it.
Yeah. Other listener questions. There's one final one. This one from friend of the pod, Shannon. He asks, "Who is the best footballer born on Christmas Day?" Now, I had to do a little bit of digging, and I could only find two.
Glad you've Googled, Tommy, because I haven't.
All right. The two that I at least knew of, and one of them's not even from this generation. One of them's Chris Camara, of that sort of Sky Sports fame of just not paying attention to the football while he was the sideline correspondent, and the other one was your boy Emi Buendia, born on Christmas Day.
Oh. Well, I'm going to have to go with Buendia, my boy.
I mean, look, I think there is one person that we haven't talked about, and that's got to be Jesus Christ. I mean, everyone thinks that he just walks on water, which I mean, sometimes you just got to know when to pull him off the pitch and sub him because
sometimes you got to know when to bring him on at the end of a clutch World Cup qualifier to nod in the winner and send you to Rio.
Oh wow! I feel like I'm right on the edge of making a whole bunch of really inappropriate jokes. So I think we'll move on from there. Next up, we'll get into the A-League round 6. So just the 2 games to discuss this week from the A-League after a whopping 4 games were cancelled either on the day of or in the lead up to those matches. But before we do that, Colby, I want to get into a Christmas-related question. What's your favourite Boxing Day leftovers recipe or Christmas Day leftovers recipe on Boxing Day?
Well, it has to be the ham sandwich with the leftover Christmas ham. You've just got to find a couple of bits of nice bread and a bit of cheese and mustard and whatever else you want, and
no horseradish this time.
I mean, you definitely could if you're so inclined. But if you want to dial down the spiciness, you could go for a bit of Dijon mustard or something like that. Get that on in between 2 bits of bread with some cheese.
You're talking my language now. A little bit of Dijon.
Can't go wrong.
Very nice. All right. Into some football now though. The A-League festive round kicked off belatedly as the VUC hosted the Woo in the Battle of the Bolsey Bridge. The Vuck took away all 3 points in a pretty solid 3-1 win. Colby, were the Vuck too good, or were the Woo just desperately missing Diamante?
Both. The Vuck were good. I caught the second half of this live and watched the mini match. The Vuck just looked like they were running all over the place. Although the Woo were threatening in that second half, the Vuck just never looks like they were going to give up a goal in that late in that second half. When I was watching, they had Kilkenny doing that Diamante role, like being the sort of center of everything, and he looked good while he was in the center of the park. But I just found him desperately wanting on his set piece delivery. It was like they got so many corners and it was just going nowhere every time. He couldn't find anyone with it, and maybe that was credit to the Vuck defense a little bit as well. But Diamante just couldn't find anyone. He was spraying it around a bit and running around in the middle, but ultimately it was just ineffective. And then then that defensive effort for the third goal was just pathetic.
It was a really strange game, like you say. I felt like the Vuck were good defensively, but I always felt like the Woo were a chance if they could sort of string 1 or 2 extra passes together. I think there was one chance where Parias, Lockie Wales, and I think Colin Payne were sort of like 3-on-1, and they managed to just fuck it up. And I think it might have been Damo in the group chat that he and I both were just like spamming the group chat saying, how did they not score then, or at least get like a shot on target? And it seemed to be sort of emblematic of the Woos game. Like they seemed to be in the game, but they just couldn't quite sort of connect the dots in the final third. And I mean, I think any team that's got Lockie Wales playing in the number 10 role, at least in the first half, I think is going to be battling to create chances, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and not to take anything away from the Vuck, who are in good form at the moment and can only beat what's in front of them, and they did so. They did the job over the Woo, but like the Woo really had a bad night. They were missing Diamante to start with, and Lacroix had his worst game. Like he's been really solid defender, but for the first couple of goals, he just in that first half, the mini match that I watched, he did not look great. So if they get their players back and playing good football again, just looks like a bad night for the Woo as well. But credit to the Vuck, you can only beat what's in front of you.
It's a good point about the Vuck, and I think they probably do deserve credit for their performance and for keeping the Woo out for at least, I think it was 85 minutes that they kept the Woo scoreless. On the topic of Lacroix, and thank you for bringing this up because I actually didn't have this on my notes, but it did seem like there was a very deliberate attempt by the Vuck to press him, whereas in previous weeks, I think a lot of teams had thought, oh, big guy, he's going to be rubbish on the ball. Like if we sit off of him, he's going to cough up the ball or sort of spray a bit of a loose pass. And he just hadn't done that so far. And I think everyone was like, oh wow, like this guy's actually incredible on the ball. And then this week, once it was pressed a little bit, then he started to cough up the ball a little bit. And so it'd be very interesting to see if how that plays out in the next couple of weeks with teams playing against the Woo, because they might have actually unearthed something about, or a bit of a weakness in the Woo defensively. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, because they look solid in the air, but as you say, Tommy, a bit of pressure on them was the difference in this one.
I mentioned before that Nick D'Agostino, he got the final goal for the Vuck in the 3-1 win. He came off the bench, and it was the second time, I think, in successive matches that he scored off the bench. Is there a better super sub in the A-League at the moment than Nick D'Agostino?
Well, not on current form and current impact that he's having, but I just don't know when people are going to start rating Thick Nick. Like Shagastino, he's been good. I've rated him ever since his days at the Raw, and under Popper at Perth played really well, and he's doing the same here. Like Popper's just knows how to manage him evidently, and is getting the best out of him. And I think if he keeps this form up, like he is one that we will see back in the contention for the Socceroos, because if he keeps on this trajectory, he's one of those. He's just a striker who's a little bit different. He can be an out and out number 9, good in the air. Good physicality, decent on the ball, good speed. I think he's something a little bit different than the current crop with sort of current names that are getting thrown up. I'm not saying he's better than the likes of a Macca or a Taggart, but he's a bit different.
We've seen with City and Marco Tilio, there was some reports that he wasn't quite ready to be playing 90 minutes, or just wasn't quite able to see out more than about sort of 45, the intensity required. Do you think that's maybe a problem with Nick D'Agostino as well, that he's maybe not quite ready to be starting because of not quite a fitness thing, but just or mentally / physically just isn't able to play with the required intensity for more than about 45 minutes? And that could be why he's so good off the bench.
Potentially, but if anyone's going to get him fit enough, it's going to be Popper, isn't it?
Yeah, get out there, bring out the skin fold tests. Another guy from the VUC who's getting big plaudits at the moment is Jake Brimmer. He had another fantastic game in this one. Should have probably got it was sort of the pass before the assist in the lead up to, I think, the first goal. Do you think he can lead the VUC to big things this season, or do you think he still maybe needs a little bit further improvement before he's able to really, I guess, dominate games week in, week out for a championship winning team?
I don't know. We've already seen him improve quite a lot from last year. He was the best player in a really poor team last season,
Hmm.
and he seems to have continued that development again, and just improved all aspects of his game. We talk about Kilkenny and contrast that to the likes of Brimmer and his set piece delivery. And I'm going to take credit for this because I said, what have you got Brimmer on your set pieces for last season? And ever since I said that, he's looked like amazing. His set piece delivery has been just beautiful, like free kicks, corners. He's got it all.
Absolutely killing it at the moment, I guess, both in open play and from free kicks at the moment. The result does see Melbourne Victory go up to first in the ladder. Obviously, they've played a bunch more games than a whole bunch of teams, including Perth, who've only played 4 teams, and the Raw, who've only played 4 teams. But still interesting times, I guess, and VUC fans are going to be very pleased with their beginning to the season, especially considering Popper's teams tend to start a little bit slower than maybe other teams do. So very positive early signs, I guess, for the VUC. Moving on, though, to the other game that did actually get played this round, which was the Mcballs hosting Sydney FC. This was top of the table versus last season's runners-up. And you would have thought this is going to be an absolute cracker of a game. Like Sydney would get a big point to prove. Mcballs, who I think went out in the semi-finals last year against Sydney, and would have been thinking, yep, okay, here is really our opportunity to sort of stamp our mark on the season and against one of the best teams of recent years in the A-League. But it just didn't really play out that way with Sydney running out 3-0 winners. Bobo and LaFondra both didn't play, with Patrick Wood and Bahagia both starting. Do you think Sydney are better off without Bobo and LaFondra?
Well, Sydney are better off without this version of Bobo and LaFondra. Just coming back into the squad, Bobo, hasn't really gelled in so far in the way he did in, his first stint with the club where he was just electric. And then you've got LaFondra who was injured, and he, before this it's an ankle thing now, I think. But before this, he looked like he was nursing some kind of strains and aches and pains. So he didn't look like he was at 100% either. But look, we know Sydney have got this sort of quality and depth and youth to fall back on, and we've been talking about it on the pod a lot over the years as well. All these kids who can't get a look in, and now we're seeing, just how talented they are, and we knew that already. Bahagia always been my boy. Wood looks good, even though he got a bit of a tap in this game. Burgess, your ex boy Tommie. Yazbek has played 2 games so far, I think, and has looked brilliant. Retro had a great game. Caceres is like leading the Alex Tobin medal count on Paramount Plus. And all of these guys are coming good at the same time. So it's no wonder that Sydney are starting to get performances like this. And now I think you've got Mustafa Amini coming in. So they're going to be better again.
Yeah, and before we move on to Mustafa Amini, I would have thought that between Wood and Buhaja that they probably didn't need one of either Bobo or LaFondra. And I mean, I doubt Bobo and LaFondra are on sort of cheap wages. So it just strikes me as a little bit strange that they kept both on for this season when I mean, Wood's a little bit younger than Bahaja. I think Bahaja's, 22, 23. So Bahaja's not a young player anymore. Like he's someone who's at the right age to be stepping up to the to becoming, I guess, an important player in the first team. But I mean, they also need opportunities as well. And a 35 or 36 or 37-year-old probably shouldn't be keeping out a 23-year-old if that's where you're hoping to go for the next few years. But anyway,
But from Sydney's perspective, if you can afford it, why wouldn't you? And clearly they
yeah.
can. So, but yeah, but the other side of that is what we've been saying about, why are you keeping these guys out? Like if you developed these guys, you'd probably have better younger players who are cheaper. But
I think
that's the eternal debate, isn't it? Like whether you're going to sort of give young local kids minutes or whether you're going to give it to experienced journeymen.
I think with Bahagia, maybe you can understand it because of his injury record over the last couple of years. I mean, there's probably a pretty strong feeling in the Sydney camp that he's not going to be able to make 20 starts throughout a season because he's gonna pick up either niggly injuries or a major injury, which might keep him out for sort of 10 weeks at a time. So I can kind of understand from that perspective, but not from Patrick Wood. I mean, he seems to be ready to be playing sort of 2 of every 3 weeks to be starting. So, I mean, that's just my take, but still, I guess I'm a little bit surprised, and maybe that's just emblematic of playing too many Football Manager saves, and you get out anyone over 30 and just get in it like the
As
18,
soon as they
19.
turn 30, they just drop off a cliff.
Exactly. But look, like I said just earlier, time to get on to Mustafa Amini. He was announced this week that he would be signing for Sydney as an injury replacement player. Great signing, you think, for Sydney? Where do you think he's going to fit in?
In the middle of the park. No, but to be fair, he will likely take the spot of a Yazbek or a Retre, which is unfortunate. I know he's a bit more versatile than that, so I don't know exactly how he'll play and whether they're going to stick with the 4-4-2. You'd expect that they would, but I mean,
2-2-2-2.
Maybe they'll go back to the 4-2-2-2-2. But someone's got to miss out there. But you never know. Hopefully, look, you'd have to say it would be Yazbek, but it'd be a real shame because he's looked brilliant since coming in.
I always thought Mustafa Amini was more of as a 10 and would play in one of those sort of wide advanced roles. Have I totally got the wrong take on Amini?
I haven't seen him a lot since he's been playing in Europe. I must admit, I haven't been following his games, but when he was sort of in and out of the Socceroos and when he was playing here, like I always thought he was more of an 8 and could do a 6 role, like sort of like a versatile central midfielder. But I don't know. We'll find out exactly what he's like when he comes back. So watch this space.
Yeah, I guess because for me, I thought, like they've signed Amini, fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily seem to me like he'd be a great fit for what they actually need right now, which is basically a Bratton replacement. And I mean, just from memory, when they didn't seem like similar sorts of players, but maybe it's just my memory letting me down from probably the 3 minutes of Mustafa Amini that I actually saw when he was last here, 6 or 7 years ago or something like that. So,
well,
looking
Tommie,
forward to be proven wrong.
What we can count on is that if we've got this take horribly wrong, someone's going to get into our comments on Twitter after this and let us know exactly what's what. And if I could ask, if you are going to get into our comments and let us know exactly what we've got wrong, just link us to some highlights. Give us a look at him.
Yeah,
I don't want to Google that shit.
That's a good shout. One final thing, I guess, more just a broad comment about not only this game but also the Melbourne Victory game and the Woo game was that these two matches they kicked off simultaneously on in a round where there was only going to be 2 games end up being played. Obviously, which game was it? The Central Coast and Wellington game. That game was postponed at late notice the day after this one. But do you think they should have moved this so that it was consecutive kickoffs rather than simultaneous kickoffs? Or, I mean, they just weren't to know? Or what do you think, Colby?
Ideally, yes. But, I mean, how easy is that to do in reality? I don't know. I expect it's not as easy done as it is said, right? Like to move an entire fixture logistically, people have bought tickets. I mean, not many to this Macarthur Sydney game, but I would think that would be not as easy to do as it is for people to say, oh, well, this is how it should work. And I thought I guess that's a wider discussion, isn't it, around the simultaneous Saturday night kickoffs. Like so far, it hasn't been as electric as I think that people were probably hoping. Tommie, you haven't got your goal rush that at least you were wishing for. But I don't know. I still like the idea of the simultaneous kickoffs on a Saturday night. There's a bit of buzz around, and you don't have to necessarily wait all night to see like 3 A-League games in a row. Like, I mean, you and I love that, and the hardcore fans love that. But I think from a streaming perspective, if you can get 2 games at prime time, that must be what they're thinking. Like the fans of one set of games will watch that, and the fans of the other set of teams will watch the other games. So
I think one of the issues this season has been that through basically bad luck more than anything is that the teams or the games that have played been on Saturday night, there hasn't been a lot of goals in them so far. So it's just been a bit of a shame that like there hasn't really been a goal rush of any sort in to excuse the pun in any of those double headers that have been played simultaneously. So it hasn't really seemed like there was even 2 games being played sometimes. So and I guess like we remember with the FFA Cup how you'd have like simultaneous kickoffs and they'd have the bell, the ding, 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 ding. And it was like, oh, wow, like what's going on? It was something that really caught your attention, right? And that was sort of done well from a broadcast perspective. And I don't feel like they've really sort of nailed that side of it yet from a goal rush. And I think if there's one complaint from a lot of people that don't watch a lot of football, it's that there's not enough goals. And so if you play 2 games simultaneously and you cut to the goals from another match, there's a way of sort of artificially increasing the excitement around the broadcast. And I guess the problem has been is that unless you're really dialing that up and you have bells or bongos or something as a way of really amping up the excitement when there are goals scored in those 2 matches, then it just makes things, I guess, it's just you're not achieving what you're setting out to achieve. So interesting to see, I guess, how Channel 10 end up evolving that as they go with the broadcast this season.
Well, people just have to get their bells fix in MacArthur games until they've tightened up this goal rush concept.
Exactly. One other thing about the A-League before we move on, Colby, and that's what did you make of the Perth quarantine in Brisbane saga? Did you want to talk
Well,
at
we
all
did
about
touch
that?
on this last week on the pod, Tommie. So, I mean, of course, you would have heard that as a listener to the pod when you weren't on it. But it really just highlights the problem of playing like the A-Leagues being the first competition, I suppose, to play in a truly open comp now in country with the pandemic, whereas previously they were in a bio bubble. But it's unfortunate timing with Omicron. But like the real problem seems to me, and it's highlighted in this Perth quarantine saga, is that you've got different rules across all of the states. And that's where they're really running into problems at the moment. Like Perth are over in Queensland, and they've both Queensland and WA have got the sort of still the most strict rules at the moment, where we're all ostensibly supposed to be opening up. But like isolation of close contacts is different in different states, and that's making things more difficult again when you have squads like that have been in touch with a positive case, or there's a positive case in the squad and it knocks the whole squad out. So like that's where you run into real difficulties, and that's what they're going to have to navigate, and they don't have a lot of control over that. And then you add into the mix lower vax rates among the playing group as a whole, which we've talked about as well. So it was always just a car crash waiting to happen, and it just remains to be seen what the solution is, if anything.
It always felt like it was going to be Perth that were going to get slammed by this the most, and it just so happened that it wasn't just that Perth got slammed by it; it was that they got also slammed by it over the Christmas period as well. So it was
sucks for the glory. Yeah,
really, really unlucky. Not only that it just happened in general, but just also the timing, which I guess was really unfortunate too.
Yeah, they've had a tougher run than most teams, other than Wellington, who we were also mentioning last week as well. Like those 2 teams have just had a really crap run over the past couple of years. With Wellington haven't even been able to have a home game. So
And I even wonder if Wellington, because they've been able to get into sort of a bit of a new routine of, okay, we know we're going to be operating out of Wollongong for the next couple of months. They're able to sort of bed down and sort of feel like they've got a bit of a home away from home. But I mean, for Perth, it's I don't know. It'd be curious to know what people think as to which would be harder, just knowing you're going to be working and operating and training and playing out of Wollongong for sort of 6 months, sort of away from your family and friends, or if you'd be better off just not knowing where you're going to be from week to week, as is the case with Perth. So obviously pretty difficult for both parties, but still. All right, let's get on to the Premier League though. Just the 3 games were postponed in the Premier League in the Boxing Day round. But look, before we get into that, Colby, what's your favourite Cadbury favourite?
Got to be cherry ripe, Tommy.
Oh, good shout! I'm a big fan of the cherry ripes as well.
Straight into the cherry ripes.
What's your take on cherry? The Turkish delight. Are you a fan or?
Oh yeah. That's normally number 2 for me, I would say.
Well, this is something I found very surprising in the last year or two. I stumbled across it seemed to be, maybe it was just 2 or 3 people agreeing with each other, but I felt like it was a critical mass of people saying that Turkish delight was just garbage, and I was like, what? I thought Turkish delight was great. I rated it as well. So
top tier.
Was very pleased to hear that you're also a fan of the Turkish delight as well. Something that wasn't quite so sweet, and that was Manchester United's performance this morning against Newcastle. Manchester United huffed and puffed, but ultimately looked very similar to the team that struggled with Ole at the wheel just a few weeks ago. They were disjointed, gave the ball away routinely, and was shaky at the back as both Varane and Maguire struggled to deal with a motivated Newcastle side. A couple of injuries as well for Newcastle. It looks like St. Maximum, he came off with what looks like an injury, and also Callum Wilson appears to possibly be injured as well, maybe out. I heard the commentators post-match saying that he could be out for as long as sort of 6 to 8 weeks or something with a calf injury. So not great for Newcastle to lose probably one of their best players. And I think a lot of people seem to agree that Newcastle don't have problems scoring goals. It's everywhere else that they have problems. And if they lose St. Maximum and Wilson, I mean, now they can't do anything. So further complications, I guess, for January for Newcastle, meaning that they might end up dipping into the transfer market for a striker as well, which is something that they maybe weren't planning on doing. What did you make, Colby, of Bruno Fernandes playing as part of the double pivot alongside Matic in the final 15 minutes in this one?
Interesting move, but Bruno, he didn't have his best game. I lost count of the amount of times he got caught in possession. It was like, yeah, not his finest hour, but interesting position. Let me just say,
it felt like it was a little bit reminiscent of like that the Galacticos era Real Madrid, where they bought they bought Beckham when they didn't need him, and sort of one of the best right midfielders in the world at the time, and then they make him a centre midfielder, and it feels a bit like that with Bruno Fernandes at the moment, where everyone acknowledges he's a great number 10, and he's just got a huge amount of energy, and they've got him doing doggies for Ronaldo, who's well past his best, and now in this game they had him playing as sort of like a pseudo 6/8. Just a really weird situation for him to be in, and like, I mean, it goes a long way to making a case for why Manchester United aren't doing as well as previous seasons, is because they're playing their best player out of position at the moment. So
yeah, weird setup.
Yeah, very strange. Question for you, mate. Did you have Joe Ellington turning into prime Patrick Vieira on your 2021 bingo card?
Prime Vieira is a bit of a strong one, Tommy. He was pretty decent. You got to give the points to St. Maximum, and but also to Newcastle's backline, like Lascelles and Emil Kraft, I thought were quite good in this game too. So Prime Vieira, he had a good game.
I did see some. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know that I think he got at least it was either 8 tackles or eight turnovers where he's collected the ball. So Joelinton, he did do a great effort to win the ball back a lot of times for Newcastle, and then put them onto the front foot as well. So um, it does seem just a wild time to be alive, though, when Joelinton is turning into like a fantastic box-to-box midfielder for Newcastle, though, after
He
being
might be
signed.
turning into prime Joelinton. Let's just say that.
Yeah, right, fair enough. But look, a really frustrating, not only performance but also result for Manchester United. This is one that they would have looked at and thought, yeah, okay, sweet, Boxing Day result, Boxing Day game against second bottom. They probably would have thought this is 3 points in the bag, but just didn't plan out that way, and shows that Ralph Rangnick has still got plenty of work to do, I guess, with that squad.
Mm.
Next up is the other Manchester side. They played or they hosted Leicester City, and Leicester City's defensive woes continued as City put 6 past them in this week's rout. Raheem Sterling and KDB scoring 3 between them to wind back the clock to about 18 months ago, where both were at the peak of their powers. KDB was the first City player to get on the score sheet, and although Bilver's been getting a lot of the plaudits this season for City, do you think we could see a bit of a return to 2018 era KDB?
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, in the past couple of weeks, he's been vintage, absolutely vintage. But like in this game, I think when you look across the park and you've got Mahrez, Sterling, Gundogan, even Fernandinho having just great games alongside you, like he's just got acres of space to operate in. And for that first goal, just the mark of how good he is. If you watch that first goal that De Bruyne got, it just looks like time slows down. Like it looks like he has all the time in the world, but what he did is not easy. You watch players try and do what he did. You watch players try and do that in the A-League, and it'll get blocked by a defender, or the shot will go wide. But he just made that look so easy.
And I don't think even Joelinton could do that. Could pull it off.
Not even prime Joelinton.
Another thing that really stood out for me in this game, and it wasn't Manchester City, but I tell you what, I thought James Maddison looked like a very motivated young man in this game, and that counter attack that Leicester had that turned into the James Maddison goal. I thought that was just chef's kiss, and it reminded me a little bit of, you remember, I think it was it was the beginning of last season when Leicester just absolutely dismantled City, and everyone went, "What the hell? Where did that come from?" But it reminded me a little bit of that, where Leicester just absolutely cut through the City midfield and showed that they are vulnerable still on the counter attack. It's just
well, and it's always been a good matchup, especially in recent times. As you say, City have a bit vulnerable to a counter attack, and Leicester have been a great transition team. But the issues with Leicester are clearly at the other end. You've got 3 of your best central defenders out injured long term, and you've got a partnership of Vestergaard and Amati. So come on, like of course you're going to be giving up a lot of chances. And Schmeichel's a great goalkeeper, but when you've got those two protecting the goalkeeper, and they don't even have their best fullbacks in the team at the moment either. So I mean, they're really struggling across that back line. They just need their players back.
You almost sense that Leicester just can't wait for this season to finish, really, because I mean they're looking like they're not even going to make it into Europe this season. Even Vardy seems to be quiet himself, and maybe just sort of time is just catching up with Vardy a little bit. I noticed that I can't remember if it was this game or it might have been in the League Cup just before Christmas. I don't think Vardy took a penalty against Liverpool, which is a little bit strange, but speaks to, I guess, maybe a little bit of sort of squad evolution as far as Vardy's concerned at Leicester, which I mean they need to do that too, because as good as Vardy has been for the last sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 years, he's not getting any younger either. Moving on, though, Norwich, they hosted Arsenal. Arsenal continued their good form with a free-scoring win here at home. At Norwich, I should say. 2 goals from Bukayo Saka and 1 each from Kieran Tierney, Lacazette from the spot, and Emil Smith-Rowe. Saka and Smith-Rowe have both been in fantastic form this season, Colby. And I want to get your take on who you thought, who do you rate better, Saka or Smith-Rowe?
Saka's my boy, Tommie. I rate him very highly, and I like him. I like everything he does. But ESR, very highly rated also, and those little shin pads that he wears just gives him the edge. It just allows him to move more quickly around the pitch, I'd say.
They're like,
unfair advantage.
Built for speed. Built for speed.
Yep. Oh, but they just looked so good in this game. I mean, it's Norwich and they're a bunch of witches hats, but they look like they're really clicking into gear, like that young side. And we said it last week as well. We've been saying it for the past couple of weeks that they look like a team who's turned a corner. They're getting the best out of Saka, Tierney, Emil Smith-Rowe,
Odegaard, Martinelli's back.
Even my other boy, Swagriel Martinelli, he's back. Like they just look good. They look really good. So I mean, I've probably jinxed them by saying that, but yeah, they're looking like a very good balance between youth and experience at the moment, and even without bad boy Aubameyang.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. I think a lot of people would have been expecting that maybe things sort of might have fallen apart without sort of the goal scorer at Arsenal with Aubameyang not being able to put away all the chances for Arsenal. But maybe without Aubameyang, maybe they're going to go to another level as well. Even I mean, it does mean that. Lacazette is able to play as a genuine number 9 now, whereas he seems to have played pretty much everything but number 9 for the last couple of years. So maybe it's his chance really to just grab that number 9 jersey by the horns and be the first choice number 9, I guess, for Arsenal, which it's probably been overdue that he's been given sort of that level of responsibility. So.
And we haven't even mentioned their defenders either, like Ramsdale. Who would have thought? But like he's just gone to another level. It's completely cut Leno out of the team, and White seems to be coming good on the promise there, and
Gabriel.
Gabriel like seems to be coming good on his promise as well. Like across the whole squad, you've got guys that look like they might be hitting their potential, and we haven't been able to say that about Arsenal in a while.
Yeah, it's almost boring how consistent they've been over the last sort of 3 months, 4 months since that. I think it was City that absolutely just dismantled them. And I guess if there's one thing that may be of concern for Arsenal and their fans is that they're probably about ready. They're about due, I should say, to play the likes of City and Liverpool again. So it'd be very interesting to see how they go second time around now that they have sort of turned a bit of a corner and are playing some better football and look better defensively and going forward. So exciting times for Arsenal fans. Spurs defeated Palace 3-0 at New White Hart Lane with Harry Kane scoring just his 3rd goal of the season. But it was Lucas Moura who was the star of the show, 2 assists and a well-taken goal for him. Lucas Moura has seen probably the biggest improvement in form out of any of the Spurs players since Conte arrived. Do you think Lucas Moura is finally playing to his potential?
He was always playing to his potential. He's just one of those players. I mean, playing in a team with Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, and then you've got other players in the team that take the limelight for other reasons, like Dele Alli and Eric Dyer. But Lucas Moura has always, in my opinion, gone under the radar in that side. But I just can't get over his header in this game. He's like one of the shortest blokes on the pitch and had no right to win that header.
And one of the shortest blokes in the Premier League.
That was like an AFL hanger. Like he just got up on that bloke's shoulders and just, right, I'm having this. It was just a lovely, lovely goal, and you'd love to see it.
Just wanted it more. Someone else that maybe wanted it maybe too much was Wilf Zaha. He was sent off for an entirely predictable series of events that only Wilf Zaha could put himself in. Just like at what point does you have to sort of throw your hands in the air as someone at Palace and say he's just never going to get it?
Yeah, I mean, death, taxes, and Zaha like doing Zaha things and just like having a meltdown
would be exceptionally frustrating. And I mean, he's not getting any younger, and I'd actually doubt there'd be anyone out there that might say, yeah, all right, we would take a chance on him at a big club now, because I think he's 28, might even be 29, so he's probably not going to a big club. And I think, honestly, at this point in his career, I think the best that Palace could hope for is that someone from, well, I would have probably said China maybe 12 months ago, but even now that maybe that door's closed as well, with the problems that the financial problems that the Chinese Super League is having. So they might be stuck with Zaha until either his contract runs out or just sort of for the long haul now. So really frustrating, I guess, that he doesn't seem to have really grown up, for lack of a better term. But obviously now he's going to be suspended for the next game as well, which is really, really frustrating, I guess, for Palace fans. Conor Gallagher also pulled up lame, and I think ended up being substituted as a result of his injury. Palace are really going to miss him if he's out for an extended period of time. I'm not really sure how Palace could really deal with his absence, though. I mean, since he's arrived, I mean, he's on set pieces. He's kind of doing everything, and even though he's on loan, which is a bit of a strange set of circumstances for Palace to be in, really, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, they'd be mad if they didn't try and sign him after the impact he's had at the club. But I've noticed a few Conor Gallagher on the run sheet questions from you, Tommie. But I think this is why we've got to start doing your boys in retrospect. We can't name our boys in advance. I think it's going to have to be an end of the season thing, because he's clearly your boy. You got on in the ground floor early in fantasy, and you've just really got around Conor Gallagher this season.
Mate, I'm glad that you recognise that Conor Gallagher is my boy. So, and now that we've finally recognised it on the pod, he's going to be injured and probably out for the rest of the season. So, yeah,
I think you'll dump him like he did with poor what's his name from Max Burgess. You're gonna dump him like Burgess when he's no longer doing bits on the pitch.
Well, I tell you what, if Max Burgess, if Conor Gallagher goes back to Chelsea next season because they think they're going to play him, then I tell you what, Conor Gallagher is dead to me. If he doesn't, if he's not playing at Palace next season, then no, I'm finished with him. He's not my boy anymore. All right, moving on though. West Ham, they hosted Southampton, and West Ham's poor form continued as late penalty gave Southampton all 3 points. Bit of a stat for you here about West Ham over the last few weeks. West Ham have got 1 point from 5 games since Kurt Zouma's major injury against Chelsea, and they've also only had 2 wins against. One was against Chelsea and one was against Rapid Vienna in all competitions since Ogbonna was injured against Liverpool. So, and I think that was something like 8 or 9 games or something. So West Ham in a really bad run of form at the moment, and they've since been dumped out of the EFL Cup just before Christmas, and they've slid down to 6th now. So obviously a little bit grim times, I guess, for West Ham at the moment, but. With January coming up, there is an opportunity, I guess, not only for them to pad out the squad a little bit, where previously they might have thought they were pushing for a top 4 spot. Now it's just a way that they can reinforce the squad against slipping into mid-table. So it's going to be interesting, I guess, to see who West Ham bring in January. As far as Southampton go, though, interesting stat here. This was Southampton's first away win in 14 games, which absolutely blows me away. I mean, I know Southampton have been bad on the road for quite a while, but I didn't realize they were that bad.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat, Tommie. But on West Ham, I mean, like, you just got to get your centre backs right, don't you? Like, that's the same story as we were saying at Leicester. Like, when you've got a problem like that in your spine, you're gonna struggle.
Pretty much, and I think Issa Diop, who I've wanted and just been willing to sort of turn a corner for quite some time now, and he's been at the club 3 or 4 years, and I guess I'm starting to come to the conclusion that maybe he's just not going to cut it, and maybe he needs to go out on loan and play. Maybe he needs to go back to France for a year and just get games underneath his belt, because he just seems error prone. just seems to be maybe lacking a little bit of confidence, and just needs to develop a little bit more before maybe he's ready for the Premier League, because he's just not quite there. He's just not quite ready, I think. And I mean, you don't necessarily improve a hell of a lot just by sitting on the bench, and he hasn't played a lot in the last probably 2 years. So I think West Ham will definitely look to bring in a centre back in January. So as far as Southampton go, I mean, they've jumped up to 14th and they're 9 points clear of the relegation zone. So they're seeming pretty good at the moment, much as that probably pisses off the likes of Jesse, who have been saying that Southampton have been circling the drain now for the last couple of years. So sorry, Jesse, and all of the Southampton haters. But yeah, they're not going down, I think, this year.
I've never understood what Jesse's problem with Southampton is. Like, I mean, he hates West Brom, but Southampton just don't know what he's got against the poor guys.
Maybe he's just a turkey man. Maybe he just doesn't like the Southampton around Christmas. So
doesn't like dry meat. I just, the only problem I have with them is their kit. This, like, that blue and yellow away kit was just absolutely shocking.
I think that historically has been sort of one of their away kits, but yeah, it's not a great kit, is it?
Yuck.
Onto the final, the second last game. 2 Jorginho IPAs and a Lukaku header were enough to give Chelsea a 3-1 win at Villa Park. Lukaku made his return from injury off the bench at half time in this one. Do you think Lukaku's return is a game changer for Chelsea, either in the Champions League or in the league? Or are they pretty much locked into 2nd/3rd place now, with City just running away with the league?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to see anyone stopping City at this point. I mean, you know, they're top at Christmas, and they just, like we're saying, everyone in their team is just on fire at the moment, and they just look in ominous form. But yeah, Lukaku being back for Chelsea, and if he can get him to keep himself fit and stay in the goals, I think it will be a game changer. But I think it will just result in them finishing 2nd or 3rd. Chelsea, City, and Liverpool leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the league, and I think the table will reflect that at the end of the season. But the order in which they're going to finish, I mean, we don't know. We think it's going to be City 1. They could be, and it'll just be Chelsea and Liverpool battling it out for 2nd spot.
What's really interesting this year is they say that like that December Christmas New Year period is where you really start to see like the men from the boys being separated. But I think this year it's going to be January between Africa Cup of Nations. I think that's obviously going to have a massive impact on Liverpool, and obviously they've got to make it through that period, although I think Chelsea and Liverpool might only have maybe 2 games that are affected by that due to scheduling. So it's still very much, I guess, up in the air as to how everyone's going to be sitting come the end of January. So interesting times ahead. The other point I've got about this one is that Tuchel said this week that despite Chelsea's midfield injury crisis, which saw Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic, and Loftus-Cheek all out for different periods of time, that it was that Chelsea had made the right decision to see Gallagher, my boy, go out on loan to Palace. Gallagher can't be recalled now back to Chelsea after hitting an arbitrary minimum games threshold. What do you make of Tuchel's comments? Do you think that the likes of Gallagher should have been held over at Chelsea, or would we not have seen, I guess, Gallagher really sort of break out this season if he hadn't have played much sort of leading up into December and January?
I think you called it, Tommy. The best thing for Conor Gallagher was his loan to Crystal Palace. I don't think he would have got a look in at Chelsea. I mean, maybe he would on the form that he's shown this season. There's no denying he's in an absolute purple patch. But yeah, like Chelsea, they're just stacked. Like you said, they've got Jorginho, Kovacic, Loftus-Cheek, Kante, and let's not forget they signed Saul. They've got Ross Barkley who can do a job. Like they're absolutely stacked in the middle of the park.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, Loftus-Cheek has been playing a little bit in the last couple of weeks with the injuries that they've had. But, I mean, Kovacic is back now, and I can't really see Loftus-Cheek getting much of a run now with Kovacic being back. And, I mean, Loftus-Cheek has probably not really set the world alight while he's been filling in. So, look, Gallagher might have got a run sort of in early December, but that probably would have meant that he would have done nothing apart from sit on the bench all throughout like August, September, October, and once you've got a player that's sitting on the bench for that long, it's really hard to come straight into the team and make an impact. All right, finally, final match of the round was Brighton hosting Brentford, Battle of the Bees. And it seems as though the apocalypse is upon us, with Trossard and Malpay both scoring in a match for Brighton. So great result for Brighton. And two really good finishes, I've got to say, as well, for Trossard and Malpay as well. Two players who get into a lot of amazing positions and just never seem to find a way not to score rather than finding a way to score. So so good to see them both get on the score sheet.
Oh, if you haven't seen the Trossard goal, go and look it up. I think that's goal of the round for me. It's it's almost goal of the season. It was so good. Like that improvised over the shoulder finish, like just cushions it over the keeper. It was delicious.
I feel like you see a lot of players attempt to score a goal like that, and it just doesn't come off. It either goes wide because they've sort of lost their bearings a little bit, or it'll go over the crossbar because it's really hard to do to get it up over the goalkeeper and then also make sure it drops in time to actually go into the goal. So interesting that, and as well, like you say, just great finish. But look, that does wrap up the pod for this week in the Premier League coverage. So it's been great having everyone along with us. I hope you all had a great break over the Christmas break, and we'll be back again after New Year in 2022. So until then, enjoy the football.
See.